Hey, hello there, Victor Prost speaking to you, anarchist artist. Okay, today we are going to talk about the popular anarchist internet philosopher Stefan Molyneux, who is a rather controversial figure in many circles, and given the subject matters of his talks, covering the spectrum of parenting, public schooling, religion, and government, it's inevitable that he will ruffle feathers, to say the least. Back in the late 1990s, the last century, when Stefan and I discussed these various issues over coffee and lunch, we especially had a keen interest in the politics, let's say, of power paradigms such as the family, religion, and the state. Yes, the pillars of society: family, religion, state. And we took note of the threads that tied many of those issues together. And we concluded with very few exceptions, the parenting that we received was, at its worst, horrid and abusive, and at its best, highly inadequate. That's to be charitable. And we discussed that from the biological prison of our parents, we are then released in a world where the abuse and manipulation continues. And we are talking about the paradigms, or power paradigms, rather. So, consider the authoritarian ethics to which the individual is subjugated. You have parents in their relationship to their children. Do as you're told, because parents hold power over your child-dependent ass, and they will ground or spank that ass. And then there's public schooling. Do as you're told, because if you don't, we'll fail or hold your ass in detention. Religion. Do as you're told, or else God will burn your ass forever, or else kill your sheep and ox. And then there's the state. The state. Do as you're told, or we'll toss your orange jumpsuit, prison garb ass in jail. So, you know, Stefan and I have a common background. We both come from a broken home, and we both share an intense interest in philosophy and the arts. So that's why we talked about these various subjects. And from this background, we both are now rather outspoken individuals on these subjects. We jump 15 years ahead. Stefan remains in Toronto, Ontario, and I moved out to Vancouver, and each of us pursuing our respective interests. And you know, it's said that one has arrived when you are on the receiving end of both praise and poisonous criticisms, and it's clearly evident that in Stefan's case, the critics are greater in number and more violently vitriolic than whatever I received. And these angry, hardcore critics are diligently looking into the Stefan Molyneux character. Gotta examine this guy, because after all, in the name of rationality, we are not going to be subject to the verbal trickery of a possible cult leader, because we're smart guys, you know. So we got to look into this Stefan guy. Fuck, it's pathetic, man. You know, such is the intensity of Stefan's critics that they have become a cult in their own right. And you know, the reason for all of this cult talk come from Stefan's views about abusive parents, of course, you know, or more generally his talks about abusive families, and the question of whether one should remain in such relationships. That's the source of all this cult talk, of course. And the subject of Defoe, it should be known, began long ago, before a podcast philosopher picked up the torch. I think that's important to know. One of the leading pioneers of familial relationships is Susan Forward, who wrote Toxic Parents: Overcoming Their Hurtful Legacy and Reclaiming Your Life. And significant as that book was, the topic of toxic relationships does not begin and end even with Susan Forward. An internet search will uncover a history of toxic relationships that are the subject of toxic relationships, and as I do encourage others to do research. So Stefan's discussions to leave conflicting relationships is hardly a new idea. And then there is also Richard Friedman, MD, who wrote in his article, When Parents Are Too Toxic to Tolerate. That's the name of the article, When Parents Are Too Toxic to Tolerate. And he writes, you can divorce an abusive spouse. You can call it quits if your lover mistreats you. But what can you do if the source of your misery is your own parents? And as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Friedman is to be commended for raising a controversial subject. Let me quote this. All too often, I think, therapists have a bias to salvage relationships, even those that might be harmful to the patient. Instead, it is crucial to be open-minded and to consider whether maintaining the relationship is really healthy and desirable. Unquote. So, at the end of the article, Mr. Friedman concludes, sometimes as drastic as it sounds, are you ready for this? That means letting go of a toxic parent. So it's important to grasp that Stefan Molyneux is simply falling within this tradition. And so with Stefan's more rabid critics, ideological zealots in their own right, they're like germs attempting to enter the bloodstream of ideas by any means. And the actual source of their rage is Stefan's advocacy of free market anarchism. And that would also include his views about circumcision and spanking, hitting kids, let's call it what it is, hitting kids. You know, and this whole thing with circumcision, you got to love the parents' rationalizations for this mutilation. Well, when he comes of age, he'll be glad to know that women prefer a circumcised man. Right, because every woman, why would a woman want to date a good man? No, if he doesn't have a dick that looks like a German helmet, right? It's a deal breaker. Circumcision, why? This mutilation. Why? Why do that to your kid? So he can have a pretty porn dick? It comes down to this. We're talking about conformity. Fucking mindless, slavish, follow the crowd conformity. Most parents are appeasing and conforming to the norms of their society. See, what they're doing is that they're placing a higher value on the views of fucking strangers over the well-being, the optimal well-being of their goddamn flesh and blood. That's what it comes down to. They made a choice, man. These are the subjects that are painful for people to face. So what do? Correct their behavior? Take an honest look into their past? Conduct a little soul search? No, of course not. You see, what they do is they attack the people that bring the subject to the foreground. See, that's what it's about. Stefan Molyneux is the bad guy, you see, not them. No, Stefan is the bad guy. Yeah, that's where it's at. So Stefan Molyneux's critics insist that the reason you might be contemplating breaking off abusive relationships, you see, springs from the persuasive verbal trickery of an internet philosopher, you see, because you're a fucking idiot, right? That's what it's at. You're not following your own actual experiences with these people and the promptings of your own heart and mind. No, you're a lemming following Molyneux's ass because you're a fucking idiot. That's the implication. They're calling you a fucking idiot who's dangling from puppet strings. Folks, it's just more abuse. It's just more abuse. That's all it is. The idea of Stefan Molyneux as a scheming cultist with ill intent is utterly ridiculous. But anyway, to close up, where do I stand on this issue? For those critics who are particularly frothing at the mouth regarding the DeFu issue, let it be absolutely understood where I stand on this issue. Now, if you have a horrid or empty relationship, so-called relationship, with any of your family members, stay there. Fucking stay there, man. Go to the Thanksgiving dinners. Do it! Stay in those relationships. If you're a big fucking blood is thicker than water, Stefan is a home-wrecking cultist kind of dude, and if you remain in abusive relationships under the illusion that you are thereby a good person, it makes me happy knowing that you're getting exactly what you fucking deserve. Sounds brutal? Hey, let's quote a line from Atlas Shrugged. Brother, you asked for it. However, on the other hand, if you have DeFu'd, if you've left wretched, unhappy, abusive relationships, then you have my full moral support. I will grant you the assumption that you are a thinking person who made a wise and necessary action in the quest for your personal happiness, however painful and sad it might be at the same time. And I will give you the respect of acknowledging your right to pursue your happiness as you see fit. Victor Pross signing out, anarchist artist, Pop Goes the Culture.